A solid all-metal f0.95 lens for under £300. Is this too good to be true? Brightin Star is a Chinese lens manufacturer, and they have a selection of fast and inexpensive lenses. I was curious how well these would perform, so I got in touch with them to see if I could test some of them out. This review will focus on the f0.95 35mm RF mount version. Firstly, this lens is sold as an APS-C lens, Super 35. I did a test on my Canon full frame, this Canon RP just here, and that, well, it's kind of successful. It's not designed to go onto the full frame sensor. And when shooting 16:9 video though, it actually wasn't too bad. So potentially, if that is your use case, you could get away with it on a full frame camera, as long as you're not hoping to get perfect edge-to-edge performance on photos. For my actual testing of this lens, I paired it with my Canon C70, which is basically a Super 35 size sensor, and I took it out on a real shoot to a fashion show to see how it worked, and I've got some footage and some chat from that, which I'm going to drop in right now.
I want you on my rack. I want to make you ring. I want you to unwrap. I want to pull your string. Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing.
So far, I found that it's feeling really good, actually. I thought the dampening on the focus was going to be too heavy, but having used it just around, doing some behind the scenes, actually pulling focus like between someone's ear and someone's eyes, that kind of range, getting a face in focus, isn't feeling too bad. If I'm thrown to the background, then it is a little bit harder, but it's still possible, and it's not a crazy long focus throw, so it is reasonable to do by hand without any assistance. I've got the internal NDs on the C70 just here, so I am able to actually do a pretty good job of opening up if I need to. And on top, I've got the field world monitor just there, the S7. That's letting me see in quite a lot of detail what's going on with this lens. And even wide open, I'm not feeling like the aberration or any of the fringing is too obnoxious. To my eye here, in an imperfect environment, it feels like it's going red, yellow rather than magenta green, which is a little bit more tasteful in my opinion. But I'll let that be judged when I get back to the studio and I can actually look at my big screen and do some more empirical tests. Gonna run around, do some more shooting. The only negative so far, I think, is that because it's such a small lens, my hand is quite close into the big body of this camera. This is a very tall, big, fat body camera. So that can be a little bit just awkward to get into the ideal position. But in terms of the performance, so far, hopefully, it's actually feeling really good. So I'm all set up. I don't know if I'm in focus because I've just kind of set the focus to something I think is around here, and then obviously I'm going to be pulling on this, but we are on 35mm just here, and that's a 16mm, just a Canon 16mm lens. For the background, hopefully, we're getting on these lights some little sun stars, because I am at f4 to 5.6 in between there and there, depending on how much the light level drops in between now and the show in about 20 minutes time. The f0.95 would be nice, but the talent are going to be moving backwards and forwards here. I'm going to be pulling focus, so giving myself that little bit of leeway is just going to make a little bit more sense, I think, in this particular use case. And also, the lights in the background might do something quite pretty with the sun stars, which I think are present, so that's kind of cool. 16mm is obviously the safety for the wide, and also for any vertical cut downs where we need to see people top to toe. That will be doing that, and then this is all details. This is all running slow-mo 50 frames as well, so I've had to bump up to 1600 ISO, and we do have some lighting in here, so that's lucky, because I think at the moment outside is dipping away, and by the time we get into the show it's going to be much, much darker, you know, around sunset, to be honest. So we're going to see how this works out, if I can pull focus on this lens, because they're going to be going all the way from the back, landing roughly around here, and then I'm going to be doing some little tilts up and down, showing off the lovely outfits. So let's take a look at some of these shots in more detail. Clearly, it can get very shallow depth of field, and using the internal NDs on the C70 meant that I was free to basically open up whenever I wanted to. Sharpness on subjects that are the focus of the shot, the things that should actually be sharp, is good, and I didn't feel that in this more run and gun style of shooting I was lacking anything in the sharpness department, wide open. As noted on location, by stopping down you get some really defined sun stars and the image gets a noticeable bump in sharpness and just pulls together a little bit better. On areas of high contrast that are out of focus, you do see some fringing, and as I noted, this tends to go red-yellow depending on which side of the plane of focus that fringing is on. I've used other fast lenses before, and I have to say that this one actually feels a little bit more usable wide open than the Voigtlander that I had used in the past. And just taking it down to f1.8 tidies everything up really nicely. Bokeh is abundant and generally quite pleasing with a clean look, and I didn't really see any onion skinning or anything like that, so it is quite a pleasing bokeh overall. The aperture is made up of 12 blades, which keep it pretty round all the way throughout the range, and it's also going to yield those sun stars with all the points. I forget the mathematical equation for it, and you can probably just count them, so it's this many, and I found that quite pleasing. And just an observation, at the edges it can go a little bit more cat's eye shaped. Close focus is very respectable at 37 centimeters, at which point you will have razor shallow focus, so do take care. It will breathe quite a lot when performing a long focus throw, but then it does feel like a more photography lens in terms of its construction. And I keep coming back to the price. There are lenses that cost 10 times what this costs and still breathe like an out of shape dad playing tag. Coming away from the shoot, I was impressed with the build of the lens and how it actually handled, and I'm really looking forward to playing with it on a few other projects as well. For me, the biggest downside is that Brightin Star currently don't have what I view as a cohesive set of different focal length primes. I would love to see something in the mid-20s, the 50s, 75 to 85 mil. Me personally, being on the moving image side, it would be great if these were available with declipped apertures as well. Also, when looking at the website, a lot of lenses aren't available in RF mount, and the price and the f-stops of lenses jumps around quite a lot between the different focal lengths they do have. Speaking then as someone looking to buy into a lens system, this is a little bit confusing, and it isn't clear if the look and characteristics of those different lenses they do have would be at all related. If you do want just a single lens, then that isn't so much of an issue. Their attention does seem to be split a little bit between APS-C coverage and full frame coverage, alongside dabbling in a couple of autofocus lenses. In the future, I would like to see them produce a named series of lenses that cover full frame and perhaps aim for a good but constant T2 throughout the entire range. And the T-stop is important there, because I think if they did that, they could just create something which is much more honed and specific without necessarily going for the headline of f0.95, but I know why they've done that, because it does grab people's attention. There is some debate online as to whether this lens is actually a true f0.95 lens, and I feel that this mostly stems from discrepancies between f-stops and t-stops. In a nutshell, a lens can be f0.95 but still not give you that amount of light transmitted through to the sensor. And that can be on a curve, so at the faster stops, the efficiency of the transmission that lens is able to give drops off. All that to say, I think it's just the realities of an inexpensive lens that is that fast, and nothing particularly to worry about. I don't think they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes or anything like that. Small thing, but it comes with this really satisfying heavy metal lens cap which goes over the whole thing and just feels really nice and tactile. So yeah, it's a tiny detail, but I do like that. They do actually send you a normal lens cap as well if you don't want this, or if you're using any filters or anything on the front of it. But yeah, that's quite nice. I like that little attention to detail. So would I recommend this particular lens? You know what, actually, yes I would. It is a lot of fun, it performs admirably, and I think for the price, it's a steal. Now I did find it difficult to find the actual official retail price at any moment, because they always have a deal on or something, so it seems to be $299, but then I have seen it a lot for $169.99. It's worth it at either one of those prices, but if you can get the deal price, then it is such a no-brainer. If you have any questions, drop them down below, happy to answer them. But I think in terms of feel, in terms of focus, in terms of build quality, I'm really pleased with this. And if I was just starting out and I wanted a 35mm lens, it would be really hard to say no to this.